guys, and welcome back to the Emily Knits channel. My name is Emily. I am a knitter and crocheter in my mid-30s, based in the north of Nottinghamshire in the UK, where I live with my husband and our 2 dogs close to Sherwood Forest. I am so excited to be here with you today to share my winter knitting plans. So I've only recently started doing plans videos. I started in autumn, that's the word, isn't it, this year. So this is only the second ever knitting plans video that I'm doing. But I'm so excited. I love doing these kind of things. Without much further ado, I'm going to jump into it because my videos are long anyway, and I have a feeling this one might be quite waffly. So I'm going to very quickly run over my autumn plans. I'm not going to go into loads of detail because I'll be honest, it's going to be quite quick. And then we're going to talk about winter knitting plans. But grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a project to work on, and let's dive in. So, before I forget, all the details of where you can find me will be down below. So Instagram, Ko-fi, Ravelry and email are all down below in the description box below. How many times can I say below in a sentence? If you would like to support the channel, thank you for being here for starters. That does everything I need you to do. But liking, commenting, sharing all really help. And if you wanted to support the channel in a financial way, like I mentioned, there is Ko-fi down below and there is also a Ravelry wishlist. Thank you so much to those of you who have bought me patterns off that. We're going to talk about a couple of them in my winter knitting plans, so stay tuned to see if yours is one of them. But yeah, thank you for those of you that do. So, autumn knitting plans. I bet some of you were watching my autumn knitting plans going, yeah, right, this woman's not going to stick to these. And lo and behold, you may have been right. You may have been right. I said when I filmed that video that I wasn't sure, because I'd never done a plans video before. I didn't know how it was going to go, if it was going to work, if it was going to not, if I was going to enjoy it. I've really enjoyed it. But I have reflected a bit on what I had in my plans and how I want to do it moving forward. So that's what we're doing now. We're just rolling with it a little bit. Autumn knitting plans. I had plans to continue with a couple of things that I did. One of them I wanted to finish and I haven't, so we'll touch on that one first. I wanted to finish my husband's pheasant hunt cardigan. This is an intarsia cardigan from a vintage pattern from I think the 60s. I can't remember. That I'm making for him out of Drops Alaska. I will link down below my Ravelry project page because it lists all the colours that I'm using and there's pictures and stuff like that in there so that you can see it a bit better. And I'm not far off finished that now. I wanted to finish it in the autumn, but I haven't. However, it's knit in pieces and I've knit both sleeves, I've knit both fronts, and I've knit probably about half of the back. So I just need to finish the back panel and then it's basically seaming and knitting a big collar on it and it's done. So that I would like to finish in winter. I said I'd like to finish it in autumn, but I have progressed it at least. And the other thing that I said I was going to continue with and I wasn't sure if I was going to finish was my Sacred Space. Now that is a big crocheted mandala blanket by Helen Shrimpton. I have continued that. It's grown quite a lot since, has it? It's certainly grown. I don't know how much it's grown, but it's certainly grown. And I didn't think I was going to finish it in autumn because it's massive and I haven't, but I have progressed it. I will link with that one, both my Ravelry project page, if I've got one. I can't actually remember if I have, but I'll link either up in the cards or down below to my last podcast episode because I talked a lot more in detail about it there and where I was at. Again, I want to continue going with that. I think in my last podcast episode I said if I did a row a day I could have it done around Christmas. The reality of it is the rows are taking me a long time now, so it's probably not going to get done by Christmas, but I'd like to get it done in winter. So I did do that. And the other 2 things I did do, I'd said I wanted to make my husband a Musselburgh and I did. So this is the Musselburgh I made for him. This is looking a little bit worse for wear because this is so well loved. He wears this every single day. Obviously he's not going to wear it in summer, but since I made it, he's worn it every day and he loves it. He says it keeps him lovely and warm. It's really nice and soft. So I made this from some Arcane Fiberworks sock yarn in the shade Eyes of the Oracle. And the Arcane Fiberworks yarn is a 85% merino, 15% nylon sock yarn, so it's very soft. It's got, I don't know if you can see, it's got a little bit of pilling and a little bit of halo because it's softer than a normal sock yarn, but it's held up really nicely actually so far. And say he loves this thing. It's so sweet. He will come home and very proudly tell me when somebody's asked about his hat. He's had comments he went to a event a couple of weeks ago and somebody commented on it. Somebody at work's commented on it. He went to see one of his friends from school that he hasn't seen in years. And not only does he tell me very proudly that he said his wife made it for him. But also, like his friend from school, I think he'd gone, touch it, feel how soft it is. He's so proud of this thing, and he's so proud that I made it. So yeah, this is a big success. It gets worn every single day by him. Doesn't look great on me, which is why I've got my Oslo hat instead, but it looks great on him. Oh, that was a bad idea, wasn't it? So yeah, this was a big success. And the other big success I'd said about, I wanted to finish some gloves for him that I'd started in 2024. So I was making the very basic Dancing at Lunasa gloves, which is a free pattern on Ravelry by Anne Carol Gilmore. And I did. I finished them. These are in World of Wool Fluff 4-ply, which is 100% superwash. I think it's superwash. No, it doesn't feel superwash actually. Merino. In the shade Fuzzy Duck, which he'd chosen. Somebody commented when I showed these, one of my friends commented when I showed these on the podcast, that they look like marigold gloves, and they do a bit, don't they? They look like washing up gloves. But again, he loves them. They keep his hands nice and warm. It actually ended up being more work than I thought, because I finished the second glove. When I mentioned them on the podcast, on my plans, and said I was going to work on them, I had finished one glove and had got to probably about there on the second. And when I finished the second glove, I realised that actually I'd made the first one too small. The fingers were too short, so I had to go back and unpick all 5 fingers and lengthen them to match. But once I'd done that, he loves them, and again wears them every single day. These are showing absolutely no signs of wear, despite being worn every day. It's very sturdy yarn. There is a little bit of pilling, but it's actually very soft as well. It's not as soft as the Arcane Fibre Works, but it's not 85. It's not that blend, but it is very soft still, and it's worn and washed lovely, so I would recommend this. I do have a sweater quantity of this in stash in a grey colour, which I'm going to be playing with at some point, and yeah, very pleased with these. So that was the other thing, and everything else that I mentioned on my autumn knitting plans did not happen. Whoops. I worked on most stuff, but I didn't finish, I don't think, anything else. I did finish my White Day cardigan, which is what I'm wearing. I didn't mention this in the knitting plans, but I think about a week after, in the next video, I mentioned that I'd applied to test knit it. So this I did finish, and this was very successful. I've loved this. This is a pattern by Maya Deglon of Maya Tinks. I tested this for Maya. It is out now. I'm going to be making another one. We're going to talk about it. I can very highly recommend this pattern. But everything else that I talked about, I haven't finished. One that I particularly do want to carry on with at some point is the... I've just completely forgotten the name. Lucy cardigan by the Knit Pearl Girl. I was testing that for her, and I handed in what I'd done. But the reason I didn't end up finishing it is last time I shared it on the podcast. I don't know if you remember, if you were here. If not, I'll try and put in a picture. I held it up to the camera, and I knew there was a little bit where as I was changing balls, there'd been a bit of a light bit in the yarn. And it was sort of black mild yarn that I was using, and I didn't think it was that noticeable because it didn't look that noticeable in person, but I held it up on camera and it was so stark. It was just this stark white line right across the front about here, and it just completely put me off working on the rest of the cardigan because it was so far back. It was several inches back that I was going to need to go back and do it again, and I couldn't bring myself to undo that work, but I also was annoyed with it and knew it was going to bug me moving forward, so I ended up putting it in the naughty corner, and it hasn't come out again yet. So that is one that will at some point come out, but I don't know when. And the key sweater is another one that will come out again. I finished the neckline on that, and I did the short rows, or I got partway through the short rows, and then I think something else came up and I started working on that. One of my friends has recently made a key sweater, and she showed me pictures of it and stuff. It looks so gorgeous that I think I do want to go back to that again at some point, but we'll see. And then everything else, yeah, just unfortunately didn't quite hit. I've had a year this year, and I've mentioned on podcasts recently that it's just not massively successful, and I know knitting doesn't need to be successful, but in terms of things that A, I've finished, because I haven't finished massive amounts of stuff this year, and B, that I've liked once I've finished, I haven't really got much. I've got about 3 things that have been really successful that I've loved and I've worn a lot, this being one of them. Everything else, actually a lot of it, hasn't even stayed in my wardrobe. It's either been ripped out, or it's been binned in one case, or it's been donated. So I've done a lot of reflecting on that and what makes something wearable and why these things haven't been things that I've worn. So I've been trying to be a bit more mindful about what is wearable for me and what should I be prioritising in a knit. And hopefully that will reflect a little bit in my choices of things that I'm going to be making. But I've split, so for my plans, I've almost split it into, in my head, they're 2 different periods. So December is a bit of a different period for me. I've got in my mind that is going to be a lot of finishing things. That's what I'm in the mood for, getting the needles clear, finishing things ready for 2026, gift knitting, advent knitting, things like that. And then winter for me is going to start in January. So I'm going to essentially run my plans by the quarter. So January, February, March is when I'm planning for this period, plus December. So yeah, let's talk about what I'm planning for those. So December, like I say, I'm not really planning on casting on anything new. I have some stuff that I want to finish. There's only really one garment that I want to finish in that time, which is the sample that I'm looking over there because it's over there. The sample that I'm knitting for Creative Anarchy Yarns, which is her rainbow jumper. It's due sort of early to mid-December, so I'm going to be working on that to finish that and get it back. I'm working down the body of that now. Split sleeves, working down the body. And it's not going to take me super long to finish the body because it's quite a cropped body, and now the colour work's quite easy to memorise for me. Now I'm not increasing. So yeah, it shouldn't take me too long. And then I've just got 2 sleeves, which actually for the sample she's asked me to do balloon sleeves, so there's no decreasing to do. I'm just straight down to the bottom until the cuff. So I'm very pleased with that. And then everything else that I've got in December to finish is accessories, and it's all gift knits as well. So some of them you've seen, some of them you haven't. There's a scarf for my husband that I showed on my last podcast, which I'm making the Wanderer scarf by Kristin SK, I think that's her name. It's her username on Ravelry is Gorgeous, and it's gourd as in like the vegetable, the type of vegetable, a gourd. I'll put it on screen, it'll make more sense. That is probably about halfway through. Maybe a little bit over halfway through, so that should be finished in the next couple of weeks easily. The jumper for my husband, the step-by-step sweater I'm making for him, that isn't an accessory, is it? That is a garment, but I'm already halfway through the first sleeve on that, so that again shouldn't take me too much longer to knit. Then I have some socks for my mother-in-law. I'm making the Wiggett socks by Nancy Wheeler, who is Knits It Pappy. I nearly finished the first sock on those. I only cast them on a few days ago. And some vanilla socks for my dad. Again, nearly finished the first sock of those. That's been longer on the needles, but if I can get those done, great. I've also cast on an Oslo hat for my dad, which shouldn't take me long to do. I managed to do mine in about 3 days. So once I knuckle down with my dad's, I'll get it done quite quickly. I also had a maybe that I wanted to make some more gloves for my husband. I know you'll all be screaming at the screen because these took me over a year to make, and one of my friends, bless her, had to slave drive me to finish them. Thank you, Rachel, if you're watching. But because I'm making his scarf in the yarn to match this, I've also got some yarn to match this to make some gloves for him from. So we'll see if I get around to those. If not, it might be a Valentine's Day present or something. And then I've also said I will make 2 Musselburghs because I didn't have enough. Essentially, we were talking about presents for my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. And my husband said maybe my mum would like a hat like mine, Musselburgh. So we chose some yarn for her from Musselburgh, which is on its way, should be arriving hopefully next week. And then I said, well, maybe her husband would also like one, because he works outdoors, basically. He works outdoors, and I thought he works a lot. He works long shifts, he works long hours, he's always picking up overtime and stuff, and he works outdoors, and it's cold. I know it's cold. Gloves not ideal because he needs to use his fingers. It's manual, he needs to use his fingers, but a hat I thought he would appreciate, and he's Turkish. So we picked some yarn that is the colours of the Turkish flag, so it's red and white, and I'm going to make him one, and we're going to find a nice little Turkish flag enamel pin to put on it as well. So yeah, 2 more Musselburghs lined up as well. And then I've also got advents that I want to knit. So I've got 2 advents this year. Last year I went a bit mad. I had 5 advents, which is mad. I had one was from James Makes Yarn, James Makes Things, which was 100 gram skeins. And I learned quite quickly that 100 gram advent's just not for me. I actually ended up destashing that because I just didn't know what to do with it. So I learned the hard way that that's just not for me. Then I had an advent swap. My 12-day advent from Work Knits, a 24-day but 10 gram advent from Blue Fern Yarns, and a 24-day 20 gram advent from Corner Craft. And it was just too much. And I also learnt that 10 grams isn't really enough for me to know what to do with. Also 12 days isn't really enough for me to know what to do with. So I toned it down a bit this year, and I only got 2. And I got both of them 20 gram, 24 day 20 grams. So I got one from Creative Anarchy, which is themed around grim fairy tales, which super my kind of thing. So very excited about that. I'm expecting it to be sort of dark, moody colours. Very excited about that. And the other one I've got, there was one last year that was the advent that got away that I wished I'd got, and I didn't get it because I hadn't realised she was going to be doing it. And I'd bought my advents before this, and that was the Wild Pearl Yarns advent. So as soon as she announced, in fact, I think I asked her, because she's now, I've been really lucky this year that she's somebody I'm able to count as a friend. And I think I might have asked her fairly early on, will you be doing another advent? Because I knew I wanted it this year. So yeah, that was always 100%. So they're the two I've got. I've got the Wild Pearl Yarns and the Creative Anarchy. And I've got 2 patterns that I'm going to make with them. I haven't fully decided which is going to be which. And if I'm honest with myself, I think I'm likely going to decide tomorrow morning when I open the advents and open the first day and see which goes with which. But I wanted to have one knit and one crochet, because I think that's going to give me the best chance of keeping up with it in advent. And that's what I've got. So the knit project is going to be the Ringle Cowl. I keep calling it the Ringle Cowl. It is just called Ringle on Ravelry, and I'll link it down below, which is by Liz Cork. Yeah, Liz Cork, I'm pretty certain is the name. And this is a knitted cowl. So it is like the Litmus Cowl by Jude Harper. It is knit as a tube. Yeah, it's by Liz Cork. So it's like the Litmus Cowl. You knit it as a tube. So you start with a provisional. What is a provisional cast on? Provisional cast on. You knit it as a tube, and then essentially once you've done a big loop, you come back and join to the end. So the difference with the Litmus Cowl and this one, if you're aware of the Litmus Cowl, it was a pattern by Jude Harper, who was Stranded Dye Works, is no longer dyeing or creating patterns, unfortunately. Does have a fantastic YouTube channel called Rewilding Jude, so if you're into that kind of content, I very highly recommend his channel. But the Litmus Cowl was stripes of colour with another main colour, and the Ringle is colour. It is stripes. It is stripes, but each time you change colours, there is a little bit of stranded colour work in there. So I think that's going to look gorgeous, and I'm really excited for that one. The other one that I'm going to make is the Crochet Jelly Roll pattern, which is a pattern by Kay Jones, who I think is from the Bakery Bears. Kay originally designed the knitted jelly roll, which you've probably seen all over Instagram. Super popular pattern, and I think that was in like 2020, 2021. For whatever reason, the knitted jelly roll didn't do it for me. Never interested in that. Couldn't understand why people liked it. The crocheted one, however, I love it. I absolutely love it. So that's going to be my crochet advent pattern. That one isn't going to be finished in advent because 2 reasons. Number one, I want to make it a really nice big blanket. I love a big cozy crocheted blanket, so I want it to be large. So I may end up adding other bits of yarn into it. The other thing is, it's intended for DK weight yarn. I know it's a crochet pattern, so I could just adjust my hook size. I could just adjust my hook size and make it bigger or smaller, because my advent is fingering weight. Both of my advents are fingering weight. But to maximise the amount of yarn and to maximise the size of the blanket that I can get from this yarn, I think what I'm going to do is hold whichever advent I use with that with a strand of West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite Lace in the shade Champagne, I think it's called, which is like a really nice golden beigey colour, just to make it go a bit further. And then I'm also going to do smaller sections rather than just using up one entire mini and creating a really long strip out of that mini. I think what I'm going to do, I like the look of the original, or the sample is the better way to put it, with smaller sections. And then I think I'm just going to repeat them later on down the blanket, which means that I'll run from days 1 to 24 once, and then I will run again and again. So it's not going to finish in December, but that's going to be my advent project, and it's going to go into January. So yeah, that's my advent plans, and that's my Christmas plans. Lots of finishing things, lots of gifts. I am really enjoying gift knitting this year, actually. We'll probably touch on that more in my next podcast, but yeah, really enjoying it this year and very happy to get some finished. And then we move into my winter plans, my actual winter plans. So for me, winter is a really difficult period for me. I very definitely struggle, like a lot of us do, I know, with the dark nights, the cold, the wet, the wind. Let's be honest, the crap weather in the UK. And we particularly have, everybody has a sort of festive period around Christmas. We have quite a long festive period. So for us, for me and my husband, our festive period starts really, or what I consider the festive period, starts in October, because in early October it's his birthday. Then not long after that is our wedding anniversary. Then we've got Halloween, we've got bonfire night, we've got Christmas, and we both love Christmas. So Christmas Eve we'll go shopping and do some extra shopping. We'll go see family. But I love the Christmas period. We both do. Then in early January it's my mum's birthday, so we've got loads of stuff to look forward to in that period. And as soon as once his birthday hits, it's just constant exciting period for me, really, and for him as well. And then my mum's birthday falls on or around usually when I go back to work after Christmas. And then we don't really have anything else to look forward to until my dad's birthday towards the end of March, which we don't really, my dad doesn't really make a big deal out of. So we'll usually go around and see him for some food and a takeaway or something, but it's not an event. And then the next birthday is my mother-in-law in mid-May and mine at the end of May. So there's nothing to look forward to in that period. And Christmas is done. Back at work. Same old, because it always is, isn't it? You always start off in January with New Year. Oh my God, all this energy. We've got all this budget at work we're going to do all this stuff with. And then a couple of weeks in, you realise it's the same. It's Blue Monday is in January, isn't it? Which is supposed to be the most depressing day of the year. And it's because of that, because you realise that it's all exactly the same and there's nothing to look forward to. And it'll be dark when I get up. It'll be dark when I finish work. I have 2 dogs that need 2 walks a day, every single day, no matter rain or shine. So I will be out in the dark in the evening walking the dogs. And I find it hard. The thing that does it mostly for me is the dark. I find it very hard to get up in the dark in the morning. And I find it quite depressing that I'm finishing work and it's already dark. So I try and just sort of take things a bit steadier in that period. I think if we look back at our sort of history as humans, we would have done, when there wasn't artificial lighting. I'm going to say sort of medieval times, but I'm going to have to ask my husband because he's an historian. So I'm going to have to check that I'm saying that correctly, if medieval is correct. When there wasn't artificial lights, you would have slowed down a bit in winter. There was no crops to farm. You would have had animals to look after, but winter would have been a bit more of a time for slowing down, for things like that. You would have been limited to the daylight hours a bit more. And now, obviously, in modern life, we don't do that so much. We can't do that so much. Your job hours don't change because it's winter. You still have to work 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever hours you're doing. You still have to work those hours. You still have to work Monday to Friday or whatever days you're doing. But I find for me, if I can be a little bit more mindful, particularly when I'm like walking the dogs and stuff, and be a bit more aware of nature around me, and also be a little bit more mindful in my crafting, in what I'm choosing to do when I'm not at work, be a little bit more gentle with myself, it helps. And to try and really, I guess, emphasize the slow period. Yeah, taking it a bit slower, being cozy, being at home and yeah. So I've been quite mindful of that when I've picked projects for my winter knitting plans, because I want them to be things that are a bit more mindful, that are a bit more, maybe a bit more thought needed. They're not just, some of them are mindless, and I think that's a good mix to have, but things that are going to bring me a lot of joy. And there is quite a lot of things on this list as well, and that's part of it, because I want to have a lot to choose from depending on whatever brings me joy in that moment, because it's a hard period, so why make it harder? So there are a lot of things on the list that I'd like to do. There are some definites, there are some maybes, and there are some inspirations, and that's what we're going to sort of look at this time. But there is something really exciting, that partly that I've done intentionally to try and give myself something to look forward to in January, but that I hope also gives you guys something to look forward to in January as well. I mentioned briefly Lauren of Wild Pearl Yarns, who is, first off, has been my favourite hand dyer for years at this point. She is absolutely my favourite hand dyer. Her yarns are just chef's kiss. Her colours are incredible. But say this year I've been lucky enough to get to know her as a friend, and she is just the most wonderful person as well, and somebody that I feel very lucky to know. And we have decided to team up in January. Well, in January to March, we've teamed up to run a make along. So we've called it the Wild Deep Winter Mel. So the idea is that it is going to run from January to March. And don't worry about details, because I'll be properly releasing it on here. We'll be properly releasing it on Instagram with details. We'll be teasing it over the next couple of weeks. But we're going to be running a make along. Any craft welcome. Whips are welcome. No finished objects required to win, although you get extra entries for finished objects. Is my idea. Running all across the winter, and the aim is to be more mindful, be more slow, be more cosy. Take a bit more time with your knitting to connect with it, or your sewing, or your crafting, or your weaving, or your spinning, whatever it is. To just connect with it a bit more and to be cosy and to bring some joy back into it. So we're going to be running that from January the 1st. I will, again, more details will follow, but we're going to have some, Lauren's going to be putting some prizes in, I believe, for Yarny prizes. I'm going to be putting forward some pattern prizes. I will be buying those myself for you guys. And if anybody else wants to suggest any prizes or donate any prizes, please let me know and we'll be happy to include you. I can maybe include some other yarn prizes as well, but say it is in collaboration with Lauren of Wild Pearl Yarn, so we'll both be running it together, and I'm so excited to be running it with her and also to be running it. So that's going to be running from January to March, and I'm very excited to have that running and to keep going with that. There are a few things that are definites that I want to work on. So these are going to continue into that, and they're going to be some of my entries for the Wild Deep Winter Mel. One of them is the Sandra sweater V-neck. You've seen this if you've watched the podcast. This is a test knit for Flaminia of Knitting Phlegm, Flaminia Chini. And this is going to be a perfect mindful project. This is due in sort of mid-January, so I'm going to be working on this in December as well. This is a beautiful all over cabled V-neck test that I'm really enjoying working on. I've not done much since I last showed you. I've done probably about half an inch on the body, I think, since I last showed you, but this is say due mid-January, so this is definitely one that's carrying on with me and is going to be worked on. The other two that are definites, one of them is another white day. I mentioned this and said I was going to come back to it. So one of my good friends, Mona I was going to get, she hasn't got a podcast. I was going to say of the this, but she hasn't got a podcast, much as I keep telling her she should. She does have a TikTok, but she's somebody that I've got to know through this hobby, like Lauren, and is one of my best friends. She's absolutely fab. And she gifted me this wonderful shawl that she made for herself, and I just kept mentioning that I liked, and then I got given. So very pleased with this absolutely beautiful Vertices Unite, which is a pattern by Stephen West. You're not really getting the full impact of that because the lights are coming through behind it, but it's incredible. It's so gorgeous. Her work is so beautiful. Let me just show you the colours a bit better. And I've worn this loads already. I've been wearing this for work, just sort of chucked over my shoulders. She made it for herself. I kept commenting that I liked the colours, and she said after she finished it, did I want it? And I said, yes, please. But partly because I wanted to make another one of these, and partly because I also wanted to give her something in return for this, I said I would make her a white day. She'd asked for one. I didn't just say, I'll make you this, would you like one? She did say she'd like one. And she tried this on. When we went to Yorkshire Yarn Fest together, she tried mine on because I had mine on, so, and it fit her perfectly. So I'm going to make it to the exact size and length and everything that I've made this. And I'm going to be making it in black. Glutton for punishment, apparently. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I haven't knit in black before. I don't think it's going to be that bad. So I'm going to make it out of this Wendy with Wool Aran, which is the same as I knit this in, just a different colour, obviously. So this is the shade black. This was the shade pine. This is a 75% acrylic, 25% wool blend. One of my favourites of these acrylic wool blends. I think it's fab. And this is worn really, really nicely. So I'm going to be making another white day in exactly the same size and everything. It was size 6 in black. And this is going to be something that I want to cast on relatively quickly because I think it was such a fun knit and very easy, mindless. Once I'd got through the shaping and everything, it's just stocking it back and forth. And it was really fun to knit. So this is going to be coming quite quickly, and this is a definite. And the other one that's a definite, mentioning Lauren of Wild Pearl Yarns, is a sample that I'm knitting for Lauren of Wild Pearl Yarns, which is... I've started, even though I didn't really, what I should have done is waited till I finished my sample for Creative Anarchy. Sorry about the needles clacking on the laptop, which is down here with my notes. So I'm going to be knitting for her the Cathedral. I think it's just called Cathedral by Unwind Knitwear. I don't think it's called sweater or cardigan. It is a stunning all over colourwork piece by Unwind Knitwear. The pattern comes with instructions for either a V-neck sweater or a cardigan. And it also comes with options for steeking or knitting flat. We've gone for the V-neck sweater version. And I am using this utterly gorgeous colour of Lauren's, which I'm pretty certain is called Autumn Came with Gold. I will put this on screen. If not, if it's a different one, I will check with Lauren. This is DK weight, which she doesn't offer currently in her shop, or she has done previously, but she doesn't currently have in stock in her shop. And I think she's going to be stocking again. But it's gorgeous. And she's had me held it with 2 strands of drops alpaca. This is gorgeous, and it's so soft together. Her DK is the same. So I mentioned Arcane Fiberworks blend is an 85-15 superwash merino nylon blend. Her sock yarn is the same, so it's really, really soft. And I'm certain her DK is the same. It's an 85-15 blend. I'm fairly certain. I'll put on screen if it's not. But yeah, utterly, utterly gorgeous. And this is how it's turning out. I haven't got much, so it's quite hard to show. But I can't wait to show you properly once I get some more of this, because it just looks like, the reason it's called Cathedral is because the colour work looks like stained glass, and I think with the colours that she's chosen there, it's really going to look like stained glass. And also, whilst we're here, floats, because I'm quite pleased with these, because this is flat colour work. I'm doing the flat version because I was a little bit nervous about steeking such slippy yarns, and I've only steeked once and it's a sample. But this is essentially, this is the start of the yoke. This is absolutely something that's going to be worked on as part of the Wild Deep Winter Maker Lunch. Just look at that there. Oh, it's so gorgeous. It is literally going to look like stained glass. It's so beautiful. Very excited to continue working on that. So those are the 3 definites, the absolute definites. The White Day, the Sandro, and the Cathedral. They're the definites. Then I have some strong contenders. So I got, if you watched my video earlier in the year when I went to Yarndale, I've still got a big bag of stuff that I got from Yarndale. Top of the list that is almost certain something that I'm going to make in January is the Tetra Slipover by Rachel Costello. So I bought yarn at Yarndale for this. And again, this was a Christmas present from my mum, albeit it was an early Christmas present. It's blowing out so badly. Why? There you go. You can sort of see if I do that. I bought 4 skeins, or my mum bought me 4 skeins of this beautiful Cumbria by... I literally just looked at it. Cumbria by the Fibre Company. This is a wool mohair blend, and the wool, I'm pretty certain, is something like Masham. Yeah, Masham wool, merino and mohair in this beautiful rusty red colour. The Tetra Slipover is a garter stitch slipover, but it's got one panel that has the garter stitch running horizontally and one panel that has it running vertically. And I think this will be so wearable for work for me. So this is a very strong contender to be knit up very soon. And there are other things in here that I'm inspired by and that I think I probably will at some point cast on, whether they will be in January or not. I got these 2 to make a night book, which is a pattern that one of you's really kindly bought me. That is also by Unwind Knitwear. The reality is I don't think I'm going to cast this on super soon because I'm just doing an all over colourwork pattern for Creative Anarchy, and then I've got another all over colourwork pattern with the Cathedral, and this is another all over colourwork. So I think this will probably wait until after I've finished my Cathedral, but this is something that I want to do this year definitely. This is the shade Driftwood from Blue Fern Yarns, and I have some black to hold as the main colour. One that is a stronger contender, partly because of how much I've used that Vertices Unite, is I got yarn to make a mixed media shawl, which is a pattern by Shannon of Blue Fern. And I've got a mini as well, which isn't here, but a little green mini to go with this. And these are the shades Drink Up Witches and Mulberry. The mixed media shawl is a crochet and knit shawl. So you start off with crochet, which would be in this colour for me, and then you do a knitted portion, which would be in this colour for me, with some little pops with a mini, which is a green colour that's just down there, but I don't know, I want to have to dig through the box to get it. So this might be a strong contender, definitely. This is probably ahead of the night book in terms of things that I want to cast on soon. So this might well appear in January. And the other thing that I'd like to cast on, but I don't think is going to happen in January, I think I might wait till I've finished a couple of other things, I think, is the Rocket Tee by Tannis Fibre Arts, which I bought yarn. Again, this was sample credit. Again, I forgot to mention that these and the yarn for the night book were sample credit from Blue Fern Yarns. So I didn't buy them, but I guess I bought them with work. I'd finished work for Shannon to get them. So these were sample credit from Irish Artisan Yarns. This is the shade Orlock in her, it's upside down, merino silk bamboo base, and a merino to stripe with it to make the Rocket Tee by Tannis LaValle. I think it's Tannis LaValle. That might be more of a spring one, I think, just because of the colours, but it may still be a winter project. But that one's less likely because there's something that I think might come into planning first. So they're all from Yarndale, with some definites and some maybes in there. And then I have 3 more ideas, 2 of which are patterns, one of which I've got yarn for, one of which I think I know what yarn I want to use, but I haven't got it yet. And the other is a yarn that I don't know what I want to make with it yet, but I'm very drawn to. So 2 of them are actually patterns that you lovely viewers have bought me, and I'm very keen in 2026 to try and start using those patterns more, because I realise you've bought me them and I would like to actually make them. So the first thing that is a very strong contender in winter, and I'm hoping to get round to, is the Darjeeling blouse by Trust the Mojo. One of you lovely viewers bought me this a few months back now, I think a couple of months back, and this is something that I've had on my list for a little while because I think it would be perfect as workwear for me. It is a really nice, I'm pretty certain it's bottom up blouse with little buttons up the front and a v-neck, and it's got this really nice sort of edge with some lace on, and I think it would be really wearable. It is just size inclusive, It recommends something like a couple of inches of negative ease, I think, or neutral to a couple of inches of negative ease. And the top size just allows for that, for a 60-inch bust, for the negative ease particularly. So it's worth mentioning that. I didn't realise it was quite so limited at the top when I put it on my wish list, but it is pretty much size inclusive. And the yarn that I have to use with it, I'm actually really excited to use, and it fits really well with being a bit more mindful and being a bit more sort of aware. So I have this really lovely yarn in stash that I've had in stash. That's incredibly long staple hair. You can't see that. I've had in stash for coming up for a year, and it's this lovely yarn, which I don't think you can get anymore, unfortunately. It's from Blacker Yarns, and it's their Lyonesse yarn, which is, it says pure wool with linen. It actually does say on the back that it's 50% Falklands wool and 50% linen. And this is in the shade Hematite, and it's a beautiful 4-ply yarn. I've got 7 balls of this, which gives me plenty to make the Darjeeling blouse, which is good. It gives me, I think I've got about 300 extra yards on top of what it suggests for my size that I'm going to be making, which is good, because I've heard a couple of people who've made this say that whilst it gives different lengths in the pattern, that actually they are still quite short. So for me, with my silly long torso, I will probably need to lengthen it even further. So I'm probably going to use most of the yarns. And the reason that it's really nice yarn to be using this time of year is because this is actually a Christmas present from last year. So my mother-in-law got me 2 vouchers for Blacker Yarns last year. She got me I think it was like £40 worth of vouchers. And this is what I bought with it. I don't know if it's available anymore. I thought it was discontinued. And it says, I think it's, I don't know where I'd got discontinued from. I thought it was discontinued. It was on sale when I got it. And I think I had to pay like a slight little bit extra for shipping over the £40. And I thought it was discontinued, but it might not be, because it says it is still on the website. We're talking nearly a year later. It's still on the website, and it says more stock coming soon, although it has said more stock coming soon, I think, for months. The fact that it's still on the website makes me think that maybe it isn't discontinued. So yeah, we shall see. But yeah, that's what I'm planning with that. The Darjeeling blouse. I think it will be really nice and wearable for work, which is exactly what I wanted that pattern for. This colour is very wearable as well for work. And it will be a nice, I don't think it's going to be a pure summer top because it does feel quite woolly despite having that linen in there. But I think it will be a good transitional work piece, definitely. So that's a fairly strong contender, and that's probably the one that's going to come before the Rocket Tee, is this. The next one is a pattern that I have, but I haven't got the yarn for. However, I know what yarn I want, and I haven't picked colours, but I know what yarn I want and when it's going to come, if that makes sense, because it's going to be sample credit. Yeah, so this is what I think I'm going to get with my sample credit, or what I'm going to get yarn for with my sample credit from my Creative Anarchy sample. So this is again another pattern that one of you guys bought me. This one I have ballsed up on slightly because I really didn't realise until it was bought for me. I added it to my wish list quite a while ago. I added it to my favourites quite a while ago, and originally when I created a wish list for the podcast for Ravelry, I went through my favourites and picked off some things and put them in my wish list. And clearly I haven't checked when I've added a few of this designs to my favourites. I haven't checked size inclusivity, and this one definitely isn't size inclusive, unfortunately, and I'm a bit gutted about that. I didn't realise that until after one of you had bought me the pattern, and I'm not about to not knit it when you've spent your money on it. And I particularly know that this particular person had commented before that she tried to buy me this a few times and had problems with it, so I'm definitely not when you put that effort in as well. I have removed the rest of this designer's patterns from my wish list because I don't want you to buy any more for me, because it's about 7 inches shy of size inclusive at the top end. It's not good. However, I have it, so I'm going to make it. And this is the Ruled by Neptune sweater by Clara Cecilia. Now, the one slight caveat I will give is that this is a relatively new designer. I still don't think that massively holds weight. I think it's a round yoked colourwork sweater. It would be doable to make this size inclusive. But anyway, that's where we are. This is an absolutely gorgeous colourwork yoke sweater. I think it's a shame she's not more size inclusive, because she does some really interesting colourwork yokes that are very different than what you would normally see. They're not super traditional. This one has fish on it. It's got all this koi fish on it. And that was the message that the person that bought me gave when she bought it, was that I had just shown off this bag with these absolutely gorgeous fish on it, and she was inspired to then buy me this because of that. But I think it would be a really perfect use for some yarn from Creative Anarchy. So the sample that I'm making for her at the moment is in her alpaca. I can't remember the name of the yarn. It's a blown alpaca yarn that she's hand dyed herself. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I'm using it at the moment for colour work on the rainbow sweater. It's a sport weight, but it works more like a DK, like quite a plump DK, and it's making really, really nice colour work. So I thought that would work perfectly for this. But I thought maybe like a dark main colour. I actually really like those colours that she's got me using for that, which is Queen of the North for the background colour and Witness Me for the contrast colour. So that would work quite nicely. But I think, yeah, a dark main colour and something quite bright for the pop for the fish would be absolutely lovely. So that is that's what I intend to use that store credit for. And that will be maybe in January, or maybe in winter, maybe sometime in there, but maybe not as well. Depends on if I'm fancying colour work again. And then the other one I was going to show you is a yarn that I have that I am very inspired by, but I don't quite know what to do with yet. So this is coming back to Wild Pearl yarns, my absolute favourite dye. I have 4 skeins of this utter gorgeousness, which is the shade Berry Picking. 4 4-ply skeins, which is, again, her 85% merino, 15% nylon sock yarn base. 400 metres per 100 grams, so I've got 1600 metres. And it's so gorgeous. It's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. I have a few options with this. I have the pattern for the Hunaya. I don't know if it's called blouse or whatever it's called, which is a pattern by Annie UT Knits. And I had originally intended that to be with this. It's a really nice lace yoke top. It is just called Hunaya. I found it on my Ravelry list. It is just called Hunaya. So this was a very strong contender for this. I also have the Lingonberry Tea by Marit Weber. who is a newer designer, that would also work for this. Textured yoke, round yoke sweater. I've also got things like the Lily top, which is a plain stockinette but really nice fitting top by Iris of Iris Makes. I've got the Mika tee, so I've got a few options with this, but I'm very drawn to this colour. If you've got any suggestions for a fingering weight jumper, I don't really want to hold it with anything else. I want to hold it on its own because it's so gorgeous. So fingering weight jumper, cardigan, anything like that, let me know, because this might well be something that I make quite soon. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I am fairly certain Santa, i.e. my husband, is buying me a sweater quantity of yarn for Christmas. I have asked for something specific, which is the Liner X Navita new yarn that they've come out with, the DK weight, which is a 70% Falkland wool, 15% blue-faced Leicester and 15% blue-faced Kerry Hill blend. It says, Liner and Navita have joined forces to create something truly special, a yarn that brings together timeless design and the very best of British fibre. This premium DK weight yarn is spun in West Yorkshire, the historic heart of the UK's textile industry, using a carefully chosen blend of Falkland wool, blue-faced Leicester and blue-faced Kerry Hill. The result is a beautifully balanced yarn with softness, strength and just the right amount of character. And there is this beautiful deep burgundy colour that I fell in love with, and that's what I'd asked for as my sort of main present from my husband, was a sweater's quantity of that. And if that's what he's got me, which I'm hoping it is, I would like to make a Christmas cast on with that. So either on Christmas Day evening or maybe Boxing Day. And my plan for that, and it's a fairly settled plan, provided I can get Gage, is the Finch sweater by Sumin Arn. So Sumin is a designer that I test knit for earlier in the year, the Bori tee, and this was one of the ones that's the one that I think of when I think of things that weren't successful, and it's so annoying to me because it is not even a remote reflection of the pattern. The Bori tee is a really nice boxy oversized tee. It's incredibly written pattern. It's a beautiful fit. I love their aesthetic. And I just completely chose the wrong fibre and the wrong colour. And the moment I finished it, I tried it on, didn't like it, and I didn't even weave in the ends or block it. I took the measurements and things that I needed for the test, handed it in, and I binned it because it wasn't even yarn I was going to reuse. I made it in this sort of icy blue colour that wasn't something that suited me, and I had white trim around here and on the ends because I'd run out of this blue because it was a D-stash yarn that I'd got that I had a fixed quantity of. And it was also just completely the wrong choice. It was far too warm. It was a blown yarn with acrylic and things in it. It just didn't suit a tee at all. So that is something that in the spring I am likely going to make again for myself, but in a much more suitable yarn and colour. But Sumin relatively recently had the release of the Finch sweater, which is an incredible design and I think would look so good in this DK weight yarn that I'm getting. So this is a interesting construction. It's an all over half fisherman's rib sweater, but the way that it's constructed is intentional to minimise the amount of purling that you do. So it is knit from the back panel, is knit from the top down. I have to read this because I've got to get it right. Yeah, the back panels work top down. You then come back and pick up your fronts and you work your sides, and then you work the front top down as well. You then pick up your sleeves from the top and they're worked flat as well, but joined and top down. And then you seam, but you only have to seam up here and up here. So no other seaming. And that's been intentional, I think, to minimise purling when you're knitting flat, because otherwise you're doing quite a lot of purling. It's half fisherman's rib, so it's not no purling, but it's less purling. And I just think I think it's such a gorgeous fit. I've seen somebody whose YouTube handle I've completely forgot. She's a relatively recent find for me on YouTube and I really enjoy her content. But she did a project vlog. I will link her down below. I'll put a picture of her channel up here because I've completely forgotten the name, but she did a project vlog of testing it. And the construction looked so interesting and the fit on her in the end looked great. And I think it would be very wearable for me, and also something that would work really well with that yarn. So that is going to be my Christmas cast on. if that's what I get. I've got the pattern already. I had some test credit, basically. I had a free pattern as test credit, so that is going to be my Christmas cast on, and it's such Christmassy colour as well, that deep burgundy. So that is another plan, albeit I don't have the yarn yet for that one. So that is everything. There are a lot of ideas there. I think the reality is, like in autumn, I keep trying to say August, like in autumn, I think the reality is I won't get to all of this stuff, but I really enjoy reflecting on the season and what worked, and also sitting and going through my lists and my yarn stash and picking what I want to use and what I don't, and what I'm really drawn to, and just reflecting on it through that. So I'm really excited. I'm so excited for Christmas and for Advent. I don't know why this year more than last year. I'm so excited, and I think partly it's because I've been a bit more intentional in my choice. I've only got 2 Advents and I've chosen what I want to do with them. I think that's really helping for me. But that starts tomorrow and I can't wait. I'm not doing Vlogmas this year, but I thought I would do a little bit of content taking you along with me as I finish all these gift knits, because I thought that would be quite interesting. And then, yeah, I'm looking at the pile of yarns and things here. I'm really excited to get to these and to cast things on, and to use some utterly gorgeous yarns for my stash. And I'm very happy with the things that I've highlighted that I'd like to make in the next sort of 3 months. So yeah, that's it. That's what we're going to be doing, hopefully, all being well. Let me know what you're planning to make, and let me know which of these you're most excited to knit. If you're making any of these the same as me, let me know. We'll run a little buddy knit. And keep an eye out for more information about the Wild Deep Winter Mall. I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited to have planned it a bit better than other malls I've done in the past previously, to be running it with a fabulous friend, and to have some really great prizes for you guys throughout the 3 months. So yeah, more details on that will be coming soon on here and on Instagram. But yeah, come along with us while we do some slow winter mindful crafting. So that's everything for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. Stay tuned to see if I actually make any of this season, but who knows, maybe not. Like last season, maybe 1 or 2 things will get done. But yeah, let me know what you're planning to knit, and I hope you've had a fantastic afternoon, evening, weekend, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I will catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.